So at the age of 40, I really felt quite lonely and was not in a relationship. I didn't love my job anymore, and I felt stuck because I was buried in debt and didn't really know what was next for me. So that was a point where I had to really take a hard look and ask myself, okay, what do I want the next 40 years of my life to look like? And what do I have to let go and change in order for me to create that for my future?
Pleasure to welcome you onto the podcast today, Zark. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to start off with a quick bio just so that folks tuning in have a great understanding of who you are. Zark is the son of immigrants who grew up in a suburb of Toronto. He dropped out of high school at age 17 and became a bartender. He then moved to South Beach, Miami for 2 years and finally returned to Toronto with a hunger to apply some of the tricks of the trade back home. That led to Zark founding some of the hottest nightclubs and restaurants in the city on King Street West. But on its 40th birthday, Zark realized something wasn't right. He wasn't fulfilled with where he was at life, and despite all the success, he decided he needed a change. He had what would be considered everything, though. He had over 300 employees and was bringing in over 14 million in revenue. He had the cars, the girlfriends, and the flashy lifestyle, but it still wasn't enough. He wanted more meaning, more fulfillment, and the ability to make an impact in people's lives. Zark now runs the Alive experience, which he's going to tell us more about. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Zark to the show. So I'd love to hear more about your journey, kind of what got you into the business, and eventually what led to your transformation, if you will.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the generous introduction. It's always interesting to hear it because it's like a trip down memory lane whenever I hear someone repeat what it is that I've done and accomplished over the last 20 plus years. Okay, so you asked how I got into nightlife. I actually started in nightlife as a go-go dancer, and I've shared that in a few different interviews. I was 18 years old. I was hanging out. I think it was Club Energy, or one of those clubs way out in the West End, and I got approached by one of the dancers at the club, asked if I'd like to work at the venue as a dancer, and I thought, you're going to pay me to do what I'm doing here for free and I get to work with you? Yeah, sign me up. And that was the beginning of what has been a very illustrious, successful career in nightlife and entertainment. Yeah, so that's the actual start of how I got into the business.
So this is before you went into bartending?
Yeah, this was when I was 18 years old. So I did that from 18 to 22 and then got into bartending at 22.
Okay. And then did you bartend here in Toronto, or was that when you went to
I worked
South
at
Beach?
I worked at a legendary club called Fluid, which for those of you that are a little bit older, you might know. And then I worked at the Government as well. So worked at two of the hottest clubs in Toronto, and it was fun. Bartending was a good time for sure.
So I went to Oakwood Collegiate, and we used to have our semi-formals at Government. So Government was pretty legendary back in the day, man. I remember. And the crazy thing about the clubbing scene in Toronto is that it seems like the turnover is very high in terms of being able to sustain a business, because I know a lot of the classic names that were there are no longer there. So I remember Fluid. I don't think Fluid is there anymore. I remember there was a big one called Circa too. But yeah, it seems very, very fly by night, if you will. Is that kind of the case?
I would say most clubs, depends, I guess, how you're looking at it, because, or compared to what business, because nightclubs usually have a life of about anywhere from 5 to 8 years. Now, for most businesses, you think, wow, 5-year run, that's not very long, but a venue may operate for 5 years or 8 years and then close down, renovate, rebrand, and open as something new. Like, for example, we had Century Room for 9 years, which was a very long run. We closed it, renovated, new brand, and reopened as the Everly, which we had for another 7 years after that. So I would say Toronto nightclubs have more longevity than maybe some in New York or LA, for example, where they're like turning over quite frequently. But if you can do it right, you can have some real staying power. Like with Government, I think Government was open for like 13 years or something. So there are some venues that do stand the test of time. However, places like Circa, they were kind of like in and out in like 2 to 3 years.
Right. Okay. I want to go back to you starting as a go-go dancer, And
Hmm.
this is so. This is probably 1 year after you dropped out of high school. Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. I left high
Okay.
school at 17 and started in the clubs at 18. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you get like the resources to begin your first initiative? Because I think that's something
Hmm.
that, let's say for folks who are on that business path and on the
Sure.
entrepreneurial journey, I think one of the biggest challenges, especially for this generation, is trying to figure out how do you start? Like, where do you get capital
Hmm.
and things like that? People know the whole idea of working hard, um,
Hmm.
but there's also a whole concept of working smart. So I'm just curious to know, like, how did you go from dropping out of high school and then go-go dancing and then bartending to actually starting up some of your businesses and becoming an actual owner?
Yeah. So I went from bartending to promoting, and with
Okay.
nightclub promotions, event promotions, there's very little upfront investment.
Okay.
The venue tends to have most of the fixed costs covered, and we were able to start a business with very low overhead, and we pretty much were responsible for generating our own revenue. So the venue had no, they didn't have to compensate for us for anything. If we hit certain sales, they would cover part of the DJ fee or part of, let's say, the promotional material fee or whatnot. But we were able to start that business with very low overhead. We did very well at it. We were promoting 5, sometimes 6 nights a week. Um, again, no fixed costs, so it was a lot of profit with paying out our promoters and whatnot. So we were able to make enough through promotions to save our money to open our first venue, which was Blowfish, and then after that, Century Room. So the advice I would give to any young entrepreneurs who are going to start up right now, especially with all that's happening, because when I moved to Costa Rica and started my new company, I essentially had to start all over again, just one man show, and my new business model was I don't want to pay for rent. I don't want to pay for staff. I want to make sure that there's very little upfront investment so that I can be nimble and I can cut where I need to and it not impact the final product. So just like with promotions, just like with hosting retreats that I do now, very little upfront capital, except for deposits, whatnot that you'd have to pay, but no fixed rent, no staff. If you need, you could hire like virtual employees or whatnot, and that's what I would really advise. Like with all that's changing right now, um, commercial rents are taking a beating for a reason. Like a lot of people are realizing I can work from home. I don't need to have that 5,000 square foot office, whatever it may be. So if you're starting up a business, really, really design your business so that you can be remote and that you can cut all upfront costs or keep them as low as possible, so that you can move and pivot as uh, you know uncertain times are ahead of us, right? Yeah.
Cool. Okay. No, that's very valuable. Thank you. Um, so let's talk about the transition. So 40th birthday. It seems like this was like
Hmm.
the tipping point. So I'd love to learn a little bit
Yeah.
more about that and what was it that went through your head and why the 40th birthday. Um, Tell us more.
So I remember waking up on my 40th and kind of in shock. I was like, wow, I'm 40. How did that happen? Because as you're growing up in your 20s, your 30s, 40 seems like a number so far away. But on that day, it was like, wow, 40 has arrived. And kind of did a self audit of my life. And, at that point, most of my friends are married with kids. Some were on their second kid. I really wasn't loving what I was doing for work anymore. Like I didn't enjoy being in a club 3-4 nights a week. I Although I've been very proud of what we created with Blowfish, at the time I was frustrated with it. It was losing money, and I just felt really stuck to something that I really loved at one point, but didn't have that same passion for anymore. And even though I've made a lot of money during my career, I was literally spending more than I was making. And as business started to dip, and profits and revenues started to dip, built up a lot of debt. So at the age of 40, I really felt quite lonely and was not in a relationship. I didn't love my job anymore, and I felt stuck because I was buried in debt and didn't really know what was next for me. So that was a point where I had to really take a hard look and ask myself, okay, you know, what do I want the next 40 years of my life to look like, and what do I have to let go and change in order for me to create that for my future? So that was really the catalyst for me, where it hit me like a truck. And some people, they have that um, awakening or realization moment when they lose a loved one, or a business fails, or they get sick, something, really life altering happens that causes them to stop and just start to question, am I really happy? Is this where I want to be in life? And I mean, many people are experiencing this right now with COVID, with having, 4 or 5 work, with businesses failing, marriages failing, or even just having the time to be alone at home or be with family and realize, like, okay, I don't want to go back to working 50 hours a week. I don't actually love what I do anymore. I don't actually love my partner anymore. Well, what do I want to do now? And that's I think what the conversation I had with myself on August 17th, 2014, I feel is what a lot of people are actually asking themselves these days. So it's an interesting time for sure for everyone.
That's why it's so relevant, because especially with what you see with social media, and social media, at it wasn't as much of a climax or peak as it was when you started, right? Because back then social media was kind of new, like when you started in the nightclubs and the bar
Hmm.
scene. And
Yeah,
now, I mean, it's more prevalent everywhere, and the whole lifestyle of seeing, again, the fancy cars and the models and things like that, it's something that I feel that um, men, especially young men, are very attracted to in terms of career and ambition. How did you go from saying that, okay, I want to start something new and something a little more meaningful? What gave you the idea to focus on the live experience, and what was it sort of that got you into that
hmm,
space as opposed to any other space or any other direction?
sure. So, during that moment of reflection and just really feeling the gravity of my situation, I would say it was somewhat of an all-time low for me, even though superficially or from an external standpoint, people would still think that I was on top of the world, jet setting from hot party to next. The truth is that that was a low point for me, and it gave me the opportunity to reevaluate my values from this new context of, okay, I've done all that stuff and I fulfilled my outer purpose of the clubs and restaurants and cars and all of that. But now, what do I really want to create for my life? Like, what's really important to me now? And I believe for most of us, we have to fulfill our outer purpose, or what I like to say, we need to climb our first mountain to get to the top and to take a look and realize, okay, do I love this view? Is this what I expect it to be like? And for most people, they spend 10, 20, 30 years climbing their first mountain only to get to the top and realize that it's not the mountain they want to be on. So for me, when I realized, like, okay, I fulfilled what I wanted to with the clubs and the restaurants and living that lifestyle. Well, what do I really love now? Like, what do I love at a true core fundamental level that I would get up out of bed every day excited to do that for the rest of my life? And I really looked at, okay, well, what's important to me? Well, my values are, I love to learn. I love health and fitness. I love connection and meeting new people. I love great food. I love travel, experiencing different cultures. And I love adventure. I love trying new things for the first time and just feeling that adrenaline rush of being outside of my comfort zone. So I asked myself, well, how can I take all these things I love and that I'm passionate about and combine that with what I'm really good at, which is event planning, creating experiences, hospitality, and taking care of people. And I had been on a number of summits and forums and retreats before. I've done a lot of work with Landmark. I've been to a bunch of the summit events, Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. So I had a number of personal development workshops and experiences that I had enjoyed. So being the entrepreneur I am, I thought, well, if I was to create my own, how would I do it in my own way? And having traveled to over 50 countries and really reconnecting with nature and realizing how important it is to be in the mountains or by the ocean, or even just going for a quiet walk in the jungle or forest. Nature is so healing. There's so much we can learn just from being in the vibration of nature, that I knew that, okay, well, if I can take people on epic travel experiences and teach them the best of what I've learned over the last 5 years, how awesome would it be to be able to pass on this knowledge and information that I was fortunate enough to receive through all of these events and summits and forums? That A, I had the time and I could had the luxury to do it, and B, I had the money to do it. Like, I was able to afford it. And most people, many people, don't have that ability to go away for a 1 week summit or retreat or 3 day forum And I had. So I took the knowledge and experience that I'd learned from all these different events and decided to start creating travel experiences where I could pass this on to my guests along with the other hosts, so the coaches that I've worked with to help me co-host the retreat so that they're getting, a superhero team of transformational experts. And that's really where the vision for the Alive experience was born from my own passion of what do I love on a personal level that I could share with other people to help them along their own personal transformational journey.
Okay, and so you kind of
Yeah.
took your strengths along with your passions, and you
Mhm.
were able to turn that into something that benefited other people. And how long has that been?
So I hosted my first retreat in March 2018, and
Okay.
since then have hosted 9 retreats and have had over 120 guests on my trips. 2020, there was going to be another 5 trips that included Kenya, Bali, um, India in January 2021, Muskoka, and of course Costa Rica. And when this hit, all of that got put on hold. And one other thing I would like to mention to add to what you've mentioned about combining my expertise with my passion, I also looked at what lifestyle do I want to live,
Hmm.
right? Because that's a big one. Because most people they have this vision of the company that they want to create because they want to enjoy a great quality of life. But however, sometimes we grow a business that takes on its own life that then starts to compromise our quality of life and ultimately our lifestyle. So for me, I want to be remote. I want to be nomadic. I want to work wherever I wanted in the world. So I knew that creating a retreat company like this would allow me to just work from my laptop anywhere I want without having any rent or any employees. So this is one thing I ask all of my clients to think about when they're interested in making a change in their career. I ask them to start first with what is the lifestyle that you want to live? When you open your windows in the morning, you look outside, what do you want to see? Do you want to be in the mountains? Do you want to be in downtown Toronto or New York? Do you want to be by the ocean? Start with the visualization of what do you want for your life? What lifestyle do you want to live? And then reverse engineer that to create a company that allows you to afford and enjoy that type of lifestyle. Because most people, they kind of do it backwards. They figure they're just going to start a company, make a bunch of money, and then they're going to kind of let their lifestyle evolve. But I believe you should start the other way because you might actually realize that the lifestyle you want to live, you don't need to make $3 million a year to enjoy. You might need to make $500,000. Well, if $500,000 is your target to enjoy the lifestyle that you really want, that's seriously going to impact how you plan your company and how you manage your time, right? So
Yeah,
lifestyle is very important because at the end of the day, that's what we're working hard for, right?
that was one of the things that seemed super inspiring was,
Yeah.
the trips that you are hosting. They seem like they're in some amazing locations, and there's also a huge emphasis on nature. And again, it's just such a polar opposite from where it seems you began. Do you have any sort of regrets or lessons for your younger self if you were to do it all over again?
So I I would say that I don't have regrets because I'm happy with where I am right now. Love who I've become, and it's through the choices I've made that have allowed me to evolve to this point where I'm at right now. And yes, there are some things that I can look back and say, well, that might not have been the smartest move. Yes, I should have held on to some of my real estate, or sure, maybe I could have done a few things differently. However, if any of those changes would have impacted where I am right now, then I wouldn't make those changes. Um, what I would what I would tell my younger self is to be more present, to really enjoy those highlight moments because I can now see that even though unfortunately I've had some really epic, truly once in a lifetime experiences, I was so caught up in the next party, next event, next country, next whatever it was that even when I was there, being so fortunate to be in that moment right there and then, I wasn't fully in the moment. So I think being present, really appreciating where you're at, both the highs and the lows, is is really what makes life so rich and also can provide you so much insight and knowledge that benefits you moving forward. Even the tough times where you're dealing with a challenge, dealing with the rocky time in life, and you just want to get through it. There's so much to gain and learn from just being in it. Don't be numb to it. Feel it. Really soak it up. Learn from it. Um, yeah, from both the positive and the unfortunate. Yeah, just be more present and enjoy it all to its fullest.
I think, and that's super important, because it leads me on to my next point, which is about the luxury of choice. And I
Mm,
think that a lot of people right now are stuck in jobs for many different reasons. In many cases, people don't like the jobs that they're in, or they can't afford to leave the job that they have, especially if they're not entrepreneurs. So if they don't essentially own their time, being able to facilitate a career pivot, whether it's early in life or later in life, seems to be a lot harder. What has sort of been your social observations over the years, given the industries that you've been in and given this switch, in terms of like where things are going right now for people, especially young people? Because I feel that they're most affected, especially on social media, with all the taunting that they're seeing from people.
for young people who are looking at Instagram, watching all these, you know, posts and people show off this incredible life. I used to be one of them. I had a Maserati and I had a $30,000 watch, and I lived that jet set life. And the truth is most people are just faking it. Most people, they don't actually have the wealth, or they don't actually have that level of success or material possessions. They're just leasing it, or they're just renting it. Don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that
Yeah,
legitimately have wealth. However, those that have the money, they don't actually need to show it off. I
that's
mean,
true.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure, there's definitely dozens and probably hundreds of people who have the wealth who actually do can't afford those things. But the majority of the people who are out there, I mean, it's all a facade. Like, I used to see guys at Maison Mercer, they literally 8 of them would buy a bottle of Cristal, and they'd each take photos with the bottle,
yeah.
posing, drinking out of it. Like, 8 guys would share a bottle just they could get their Instagram photo for it. I know guys who go to Miami and they'll rent a Ferrari for the weekend. 4 guys will rent it, and they'll just take turns driving it and taking photos and shooting videos. Now, I'm not saying
Right.
everybody's doing that, but like, a lot of what you see on Instagram is a complete facade. I've even heard that there's like studios where you can go and you sit in what looks like a private jet, but it's actually just a 6x4 setup that looks like a private jet, but you're having a photo looking like you're sitting in someone's plane. And
That's
so it's
wild.
crazy. Like, so much of what's out there is just a bunch of bullshit. And if you are looking at others and you're envious as to what they have or what they're showing off at the moment, remember what I said. There's a difference between your outer purpose and your inner purpose. And when I was living that lifestyle, I was fulfilling my outer purpose of, I want to be Zark, the King Street Club guy. And at the time, I loved what I did. I was very proud of what I was doing. However, that career and who I was being, that identity was driven from ego. That
Mm,
identity was driven by about, I need to show everybody how successful I am or how wealthy I am, because it makes me feel better about who I didn't think I was growing up. So often when people are being flamboyant and showing off like that, it's coming from a place of ego and insecurity. So when I see people do it, I have friends who still, have nice things and post all that. No judgment. I understand that's where they're at in their journey. And for them right now, that's what's fulfilling for them. So when you look at those posts and you see someone showing off their Ferrari or showing off their fancy watch or Chanel purse, and you feel that bit of jealousy, you feel that bit of envy come up within you, ask yourself, what part of you is feeling these emotions? And why is that part of you feeling the emotions? Like, because that woman has that Chanel purse or that guy has that Ferrari, does that mean you are less than who you think you are because you don't have that? Because at the end of the day, these are just material objects that one day will absolutely mean nothing. And I can attest to that. I have a wardrobe full of extremely expensive designer clothing that I can't even give away at this point. And those are all costumes that I bought, again, to make my identity feel validated, right? So if you want to create real self-worth, if you want to invest in your own equity, you know, go within, find your inner purpose rather than looking to fulfill these superficial needs to make yourself validated from these social circles. I know for some young people, you may, not be at that point yet, but trust me when I tell you that the best investment you can ever make is into your own personal and self-development. When you know yourself, you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need any of that superficial crap. And you'll look at people that have those nice things and you'll be, okay, good for you. Congratulations. Good for you for having that. And you won't feel that jealousy or envy because you realize that's where they're at in their journey. That's what they've gotten, good for them. And having that car, that purse, or whatever it is, isn't going to make you feel any better about yourself because you know who you are because you've done your own work.
Do you have any ideas on how people can begin to find their own purpose? For people struggling with that, I think there's a lot of choices out there too. I think we're in a time right now where there is so much challenge, but at the same time, so much opportunity. So people are looking at all these different things that they can either start or do. I know a lot of entrepreneurs would basically say, well, try out different things to experience them to see which ones you like and which ones you don't like and kind of double down on the thing that works for you. But with all the options out there and people being confused about either what to start or where to look in terms of finding their purpose, do you have any ideas in terms of best practices or stuff that helped you along the way?
Sure. So we all want to feel significant. We all want to make sure that, or at least feel that our time during this life makes a difference for others or makes some sort of difference in the world. And often you need to, fulfill, as I mentioned before, your outer purpose and all those other superficial things till you get to a point where you realize, okay, there's got to be more to life than all that stuff. And when you get to that point, you start asking, okay, why am I here? Why do I matter? Like, what's the purpose of my life? These are profound questions that will completely change the course of your life when you're ready to ask those questions and look for the answer. And I suggest to my clients that they think about, well, who do you want to help and how? What impact do you want to make in the world? And, more so now than ever before, there are so many things wrong, so many things that are unnecessary on our planet, from the way we're treating our oceans, to our animals, to child trafficking, to mental health. The world has many, many issues that are impacting billions of people. So who do you want to help and how, and what impact do you want to make in the world? And, some people, they are lovers of animals. Others, they want to protect the oceans. If you have a passion for that, if that's of interest to you, then do a little bit of research, find out what these organizations, these initiatives are in need of, and make yourself available. Volunteer, try it out, meet the people who are involved in these different causes. You won't know what it is you're going to do next unless you at least get a sample of it. And for me, I had the chance to be involved with several philanthropical initiatives with an organization called Artbound that I'm a founding member of. In 2010, a group of us in the arts and entertainment industry came together to use our resources to host events and raise money to build schools in different parts of the world. And since 2010, we've built schools in Kenya, India, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and soon Haiti. And those initiatives gave me the opportunity to feel what true fulfillment was actually like, to go to another country, to meet these children who are going to learn in the school that we helped fund and build, and know that my time there in those countries actually is going to make a difference in these children's lives. And once you get a kick of fulfillment like that, and you realize, like, wow, I actually make a difference in this world, that's a feeling that is better than any high. That's a feeling that you want to hold on to, and you know that you have that ability. And it starts with just having the intention of wanting to actually make a difference. It also means being intentional with being proactive and going out there and doing your research, and then stepping out of your comfort zone, calling up that company and say, hey, I want to come volunteer, or how can I help? How can I get involved? And just putting yourself out there. And yeah, you might try 2 or 3 things before you realize, okay, this is actually the one that feels good for me. And when you realize your purpose, your entire life changes. Because when you realize that you have the ability to change other people's lives, part of the exercise that I walk my clients through, because most of my clients come to work with me because they see the pivot I've made and they're like, I don't love my job anymore and I want to find my purpose. And at the same time, I also want to make money. So
Yeah.
I walked them through, the four areas of, as I mentioned before, what's the lifestyle you want to live? Like, where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years? What do you want to have in your life? What are you an expert in? What are the skills that you have? What are you so good at that your friends call you when they need that done? What are all the different skills and qualifications you have? What are you passionate about? What would you get up and do for free because you're just that good at it, that it lights you up more than anything else? And what's the impact that you want to make? Who do you want to help and how? Like, there's so many problems, so many issues going on in the world. How do you want to help a certain group of people? Or maybe it's a cause, maybe it's animals, maybe it's the environment. And when you can get clear on those four different aspects of your life, you can then start to explore options to see, are they aligned with these four quadrants, call it. And for me, it was like, okay, I knew I wanted to be remote like you. I want to live in a hot country part of the year. I knew that I'm an expert planner. I'm creative. I know how to host people. I love to travel. I love to learn. I love teaching and meeting like-minded people. And I want other people to have the same transformation that I've been able to have, and share that with them so that they can see that whatever they want for their life is possible. And when I combined all of those together, creating the Alive experience just made sense. It was a no-brainer, really, right? So for people out there who are looking to find their purpose and create a career out of it, take a look at those four aspects of your life and write as much as you can for all four. Those will give you the guidelines and, call it, requirements for what that next job could look like for you.
Amazing. And in terms of starting out the Alive experience, so again, from that transition to being a business owner, businesses in Toronto, to the Alive experience, how was that transition financially? Like, did you announce it sort of on day one and you have signups of people ready to rock with you? Or was it something where you almost had to announce this shift? You had to
Mm-hmm.
change your brand and sort of build up and explain to people what you were doing and why it was
Sure.
such a dramatic shift. Is that something you had to do?
Yeah. So for me, it was there was about a 2-year transition period where I decided it was time to move, and I was going to um, divest of some of my businesses. So some of my
Right.
companies closed down. Excuse me. One of my companies, where I owned a hangover supplement company, I just wasn't really aligned with drinking and hangovers anymore. So
Yeah.
I sold my shares out of that, which gave me a little bit of a cushion, which I needed because when I closed Blowfish, I lost over $1 million. Like, I was the majority owner of
Mm,
Blowfish. We did a big renovation in 2016. We lost money for 2 years. So by the time I closed in 2018, we were buried. So when I shut down
damn.
the restaurant, I really took a big hit. My clubs weren't doing so well anymore. So financially, I didn't have that revenue coming in. So I really had to simplify my life. I had to cut down all of my expenses. Moving to Costa Rica obviously was much more economical living in downtown Toronto, and I had some of my retreats made a little bit of money, some lost money, and some broke even. So I would say 2 years later, I might be a little bit in the black. And any new business, it takes 2 or 3 years to hit your stride and you start, being profitable trip after trip. Um, so for me, it was a process of simplifying my life, divesting out of what I could to give myself that cushion or that runway to build up the new business. And going into 2020, it was going to be third year of operations with 5 trips planned, and COVID hit. So it's when COVID hit and my 5 trips got canceled. Zero income started coming in. So
Mm,
that's when I knew, okay, it's time to make the pivot to doing private one-to-one coaching, which is something that I had been training for. In 2018, 2019, I completed 105 hours of professional coach training with Proactive Training Institute. So when COVID hit, I just knew, like, okay, now's the time to jump into full-time coaching. And that's what I did. I made that pivot and took something I was doing in an informal capacity for 2 years and dove in on it all the way. I announced to people, hey, I'm now doing private coaching. For those of you that want to work and learn from me and learn how to make a shift in the changes in your life, like I have in mine, let's do it. And, that took off pretty quickly. That's what I'm focusing primarily on right now, is helping people make that transition, both from one-to-one coaching, and I'm also launching an 8-week group program starting November 2nd for 12 participants. And hopefully in 2021, I'll be hosting my retreats again.
Oh man, that's exciting. That's exciting because you were still able to pivot with all of this stuff going on and with 5 trips being canceled. So that's amazing. And you're now going full time into the coaching stuff. Um, I want to ask you about education because it says in some of the interviews that you've done that you dropped out at 17. And I want to know your thoughts because it seems like you became wildly successful despite not having gone to school, not having gone to formal education. There's a lot of parents out there who push their kids to go through that whole process, especially brown parents, as I'm sure you know, right? Whether it's
Sure.
university, whether it's college. I'm curious about like that whole aspect. And what are your thoughts on education? Because my thoughts, I went to U of T for undergrad. I did a master's in public policy afterwards, so I did grad school. One of the things that I'm seeing right now is how unprepared school makes you for the workforce and for life in general.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people are starting to say this a lot more vocally now, more than ever before. But you have people graduating not knowing how to leverage credit, or not knowing what a mortgage is, not knowing how to be financially sustainable. I'm wondering about this whole pressure that parents put on young people to go to school, or just in general, sort of people's feeling of going to school if they don't know specifically what it is they're going to do. Um, I'm wondering if that's going to change in the near future, and if it has to change, because in my opinion, I feel that like universities need to better equip people to come out of their universities and adapt to the current economy the way it is. So whether it be with, understanding how to leverage social media or Facebook ads, for instance, or how to market themselves, personal branding, like these are the things that are not taught, but I feel they should be taught because it's how the economy is today. And I feel that it's so outdated that it's almost like giving your money in some cases to a casino. So it's like you're giving money to an
Hmm.
educational institution. I think many years ago, it was a lot more certain for you to get a job with a university degree. And right now, because of the competition, it seems less and less certain. Do you feel the same way given your experience?
So I don't think that there is a college or university program that could have trained and taught me to do what I do with my life, or for the career that I had created. I have been very successful in the entertainment and hospitality industry because I have a high level of emotional intelligence. And I developed that from being with people, from being in social settings, from learning how to read people and interact with them on a one-to-one basis. And they can't teach you that in school. So for me, school wasn't teaching me what I needed to learn, not knowing at the time that this is where I was going to go. When I left high school at 17, I didn't know that I was going to end up in entertainment and hospitality, but I just knew that what they're teaching me isn't lighting me up, isn't exciting me. So I left. And don't get me wrong, I think education and going to college or university is super helpful and necessary depending on what field you're going into. Now, of course, if I understood finances, if I understood business management, business development, if I had some of those tools going into my earlier like businesses, my career would have been helpful. Absolutely. Thankfully, I had partners who had graduated from college or university who had that business acumen or those skills or that knowledge that I didn't have, and they complemented my contributions. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I feel that I learned everything I needed to by going through the process. Did I make some mistakes? Of course I did. And just because you have the education doesn't mean that you're not going to make the same mistakes. I would say that I made the necessary mistakes that I had to learn along the way. So I guess that was my tuition to some degree, and it was quite costly at times, but it's how I learned. And again, it also depends on um, how do you retain knowledge. What's the best way that you learn? Like for me, put me in a situation, show me how to do it, and I'll figure it out how to do it my way. So that's the type of learner that I am. And again, for what I do now with the retreats and with the coaching, yeah, I'm actually just completing a 6-month certification process. And as I mentioned, I've been through numerous summits and forums, learning from some of the most brilliant minds in the world, because I understand that now what I'm teaching people, the coaching and the lessons that I'm passing along, there is very specific, detailed information that needs to be taught in a certain way. I'm being trained to listen. I'm being trained really embody, somatically, feel energetically, communicate. And these are skills that I'm being trained on that I don't know if I would be able to really fine tune and develop those skills myself if it wasn't for, the coaches and trainings that I'm currently working with. So I think education definitely serves its purpose. However, I feel that you should really take some time off to travel, be with yourself, experience the world before you go all in on your education. I think, students taking a break between, high school and college or university or in between before going into the, workforce. I think it's very important. Get out there, travel, see the world, learn how to be adaptable, learn how to be, learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. These types of skills and the knowledge you'll gain from those experiences will benefit you in any career that you pursue down the road. So yes, I think education has a purpose. However, for me, it was school of hard knocks and get out there and travel the world and figure it out yourself.
I like that, man. Experience first. That's street smarts
Mm-hmm.
for sure. If people need to find out more about you or learn about your coaching along with the live experience, where can they go?
Yeah, so my website, zarkfatah.com, ZARKFATAH.com. I'm sure you'll put it down in the
I'll
notes
put it
below. On Instagram at Zark Fatah. I'm going to be, I have a YouTube channel right now called Zark Life, which will be changing to the Alive Life soon. And I've decided that I'm going to be putting out 3 to 4 new videos a week, sharing all kinds of information that I actually teach during my coaching sessions. And my intention is just put it out there, put out free knowledge, free content to people who may benefit from what it is I have to share. And, if you want to learn more, if you're interested in working with me, I got different courses and programs coming up. Come join me in Costa Rica. I'll show you around, teach you how to surf, and get you reconnected to nature and yourself.
All right, man. So thank you so much.